What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Graham Hayes as always, and we're here at the Hayes Racing Shop. Stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to align your car for going 200 plus mile an hour and that thing be straight as an arrow, or driving 1,000 miles and not having any tire rub. So stay tuned, check this out.
Next up, Graham Hayes, one of the big nicest cars that we were telling you about, big block Chevy.
Our new points leader is Graham Hayes with 101 points. This dude is bad to the bone.
And Graham Hayes. Hayes is running an Ultimate Iron.
Here we've got Tony Hayes, who is our leader in pro. Now, look at the amount of nitrous on this thing. There's at least 3 kits going.
This is the car that Gene Fulton flew parts in.
Oh, is this the one?
This is the one. This is Graham Hayes. Graham Hayes.
Riding the Nova, wheelie out on the left-hand side, doing a great job.
Inside, that's Graham Hayes. He's checked out on the property. The custom home builder out of Virginia in his 66 Nova. Running your Pro Street Power Class big block.
Alright guys, so I have a lot of friends, you know, or myself personally, I work on my car all the time. I change stuff up. A lot of times you do that, it's on the front end of the car, and whenever you mess with front end alignment, you know, there's a couple different things you can do to get it back straight. I'm going to show you what I personally think is the best way. I was taught this by a guy who's very smart. He had done it on all his cars for years. I'm sure he probably still does it this way. It's really kind of bulletproof. As long as you can read a tape measure and you got, you know, some string, you can pretty much do this. So let's get going. I'll show you how to do this and a couple different steps you can go through prior to doing this, but it's pretty straightforward. So let me show you what you need. All right, guys, so this is pretty much all you need right here. A level, preferably one you can cut, but not, you know, 100% necessary. Mine has some bolts put in it, which will become apparent in a minute. Some string, doesn't matter what kind of string. I have this string because I build houses, and string, doesn't really matter. Tape measure. So the first thing you're gonna need to get straight before you align your car is the caster. So caster is the angle of the shock. So this right here is more like a Fox body. It's a spindle style setup. So caster is the relationship from where it's mounted down there to up here. This is more of a Pro Mod style front end. So you change the caster by adjusting these heims. There's a heim right there in the front. There's another one back here. And you adjust the caster by letting those, you let the front one back. It's pretty much the only way to adjust caster on this, really. But in a lot of Mustangs or whatever, you're gonna have a plate here. You can move back. If it's a GM style front end, here, I'll show you that. So on a GM style front end, the caster is gonna be adjusted by these 2 bolts pretty much. So you're gonna adjust caster by either letting this bolt and putting some shims here, or letting this bolt out and putting some shims behind it. And in relation, that will twist the top A-arm in relation to the bottom one. Your caster angle is the degrees between, you know, here and the bottom one. I typically do, you know, 8 to 12. I know it's a little aggressive on a daily driver, but if you're gonna be going fast, you want a little more caster, because just like a crappy shopping cart, you know, if that thing's straight up, it's gonna sit here and move like this. If you can get that thing laid back a little, it's gonna have a better tendency not to try to shake the tire. So that'll make it be a little more predictable when you're driving, and also make it feel like it's not trying to rip the wheel out of your hands. All right, guys, so the next thing after we get our caster angle set, this is where these 2 bolts come into play. So everything I have that I do this on is either a 15-inch wheel, which is perfect for my bolts, or, you know, some of my pickup trucks and stuff like that, if I do those, they work perfect where I cut this level off. It's cut to get up in here and measure the, you know, get on the lip of the wheel, which it doesn't fit this one great, which I guess, yeah, there it goes. But it's meant to fit up on here on the edge of my rim and not put my level right against the tire. You can put your level against the tire while the tire's up off the ground, but once you put the tire down, the bottom of it's gonna balloon. That's gonna cause some issues. So if you get yourself a couple jam nuts and a couple bolts right there, they're probably like 1 inch, 2 inch, I don't know. There's some bolts. I just drilled a hole and tapped them through, and then use the jam nuts to set it the same distance off. And, that'll get you over where your level doesn't hit the tire. The big thing about setting the levelness of your tire or the camber, it's hard in a lot of cars to get the camber where it stays the same throughout the whole motion. So you imagine as this thing wheelies, the wheel's going to want to lay in, or sometimes lay out. Most of the time they want to lay in. What I typically recommend is find a happy medium. So we might have to give up a little bit of camber when the car's on the ground to gain a little bit the opposite direction when the car is up. Camber is not going to affect the drive terribly. It's just going to affect wear more than anything else, but I still like to get it. So the order of operations is set caster, then set camber, and now we can move on to what everyone's watching this for, which is toe. Toe is going to be the relationship of the front wheels to each other. And I'm going to show you how to get that. All right, guys, so this is the setup for doing your toe. I typically would do this with jack stands, but tonight we use some pipe going across the lift. I like doing it this way when I got the lift, and it's nice and easy to do, but doing it on the ground with jack stands, just as good, just it's hard to get up and down. So having the 4-post lift is actually really nice for doing this as well. So caster's already set, camber's already set. I'm happy with everything. So we're done with the level. Now it's just these strings. So what you're going to want to do, you get your car set up, and like I said, typically do this with jack stands. Tie 4 jack stands, just a string from front to back. You're going to want to start by just eyeballing them, getting the strings, looking straight. I know it doesn't look straight compared to the lift, but the car is not on the lift perfectly straight. But you just eyeball it down on each side, get you a rough measurement, and then we're going to measure from this string to that string in the front or the back and get that measurement. Okay, so mine tonight was 73 inches. So 73 inches from there to there. We go to the back, move one side to 73 inches from the other side. And then at that point, we're going to take the tape measure and we're going to measure from hubcap to hubcap. I like to start in the rear because the rear is not as critical, but also it tends to work out better if you start in the rear. So right here, we're 3 3/8. We come around to the other side and we're going to get the same thing, 3 3/8. So at this point, which of course I've adjusted this thing for 20 minutes. I've gotten these both 3 3/8. Typically just get those rough, get those close to each other, within reason, within a quarter or so, and then come to the front and you're going to want to do the same thing. So from this center cap, and we'll go around to the other side and we'll check the other center cap. I'm not going to go through all this tonight, which I've already done it. I'm done. But I'm not going to show you all this because it'll take forever. But you get the same measurement from the center cap to center cap. It's not the same as your rear. So my rear is 3 3/8. Up here in the front, it's 4 5/8. So 4 5/8 on my front. Once I get that the same, now every time you move one side of the string, so if I move this side of the string over to get, say I'm at 4 1/2, move this over 4 5/8, you have to remeasure from that string to this string and then check this side. And that's the hardest part about this. So we're going to keep these strings at 73 inches apart at all times and move both of them together in relation. What we're making is a squared box around our car, and it's squared off of our spindles and our rear caps, and that's what gives us the ability to have something straight to measure off of. So once we get these the same, which mine are, both sides, 4 5/8, now we can measure off the lip of our wheel, not our tire, but the lip of our wheel, and get, so there's 3 1/2. And here is 3 and a little over 5/8. It's basically 3 and, it's not quite 3/4, so 3 and 11/16. I'm shooting for about an 1/8 inch toed in on both sides of the front. So 1/8 inch toed in, both sides. Once we get that, we've got an 1/8 inch on both sides. That's a 1/4 inch toed in total on the front. At that point, we're gonna wanna take a floor jack. If you're doing this on the floor, it's a little bit easier to do this part. In my situation, I'm gonna take a floor jack and a extender, and I'm gonna lift the front of the car up and check our measurements again. Not to where the tires are off the ground, just to where we're extended up close to full travel. And at that point, do your measurements to your wheel once again. As your suspension goes through the motion of extending, especially in a car like this with a gearbox, but even a car with a rack and pinion, the tires will change. And what we want is to make sure that at no point does this alignment ever have the wheels kicked out on both sides. If both wheels are toed in, the car will become more predictable to a point. Especially going down the track, 1/8 mile racing, 1/4 mile racing, it's only for seconds of a time. You won't really wear your tires out or see excessive wear from them becoming more toed in going down the track. If you become toed out at any point during the suspension travel, especially even at full compression, like if you did a wheelie or did a little wheelie and it came down and it goes to full compression and it toes out, this thing will become unpredictable as all get out. Toed out is our enemy. So the best case scenario is even if you go neutral at full extension, I'd rather have neutral at full extension than toed out at all. We're going to try to stay toed in at all times. All right, guys, so that was a quick little video tonight, just trying to show y'all how to do some stuff. It always amazes me when you see people, people have pro mods and they'll say, I need to take them to the alignment shop. And it's like, no, you don't. The other thing I want to say, just to keep in mind when you're saying, hey, this is a lot of work, I don't want to do this, or hey, I can just take it up here and they'll align it for 30 bucks or whatever. They are not going to check all this stuff. They may check caster if you're lucky, if it's a good place. They may check camber if you're lucky and it's a good place. More times than not, they're going to get this thing neutral at ride height and send you out the door. And it happens all the time. And a lot of cars that are neutral at ride height, especially if the geometry of the steering arms, whether it's gearbox or rack and pinion, or if they're in some odd angle, because that's another thing too, when you're doing this, if you keep getting these odd measurements, like, oh, every time I lift the front of the car up, this thing goes crazy toed out. The steering arms may need to be moved on the spindle in relation to height. And plenty of people make kits to move them down and move them up, and you can read all about that for days and just try stuff. But more times than not, a regular shop is going to set this thing neutral at ride height for a 100,000 mile straight line journey down the interstate and to make your Michelins last for, ever. We do not want that. This is drag racing. These cars go through back tires all the time. Going through a set of front runners every year, or maybe, pretty much every year, even with a couple drag and drives on them, is no big deal. We want this thing to be safe and predictable going down the track, so you're not in there fighting this car. If you got a 7-second car and you're fighting it going down the track, that is a problem. First of all, it's dangerous, and second of all, there's no reason for it. There's cars that run in the mid-5s, and steering input is different than unpredictable fighting. So just keep that in mind, guys. I'm telling you right now, if you get into it, it's not hard to do by any stretch of the imagination. And I see so many guys, all the time at the track, they take 2 tape measures and they put one in front of the wheel and one behind the wheel, and hook them on the rims, and there's 2 guys and they're measuring and guessing. And it's better to square the car and then try to set the tires to what the chassis is. We're not even worried about body panels or anything like that. We're squaring just to the actual geometry points of the car and getting our steering great off that. I didn't say it earlier in the video, but also make sure your steering wheel's straight before you do too much of this, because that's really annoying. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. We're going back racing soon. I'm gonna try to put some videos out. Have a good day.